Hey, this is Charles Work, starting to use it. FCC requires me to ask you, is it okay to put you on the air?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what we want to talk about tonight, I think you saw the story about me getting assaulted and at the North Garden Apartments, and you thought, your stance is you think I ought to drop the charges, right?
Well, here's the thing. Was it wrong what they did to you? Yes, it was definitely wrong. In a moment when people are dealing with the highest stresses, emotions are running high, being very cordial, saying, could you please just step back? Not saying you don't cover the story, but just saying, could you please just step back?
Well, first of all, if you watch the tape, have you watched the 40 minutes of the situation?
No, I haven't. Matter of fact, I wanted to hear your perspective on it too.
Right. Well, I was going to cover city council that night, and I
remember you. I remember the camera being in there.
Yeah.
Then I heard, I think you asked Fincher. He was like, "What's the story?" And he was like, "Well, I've been in council, so I don't know what's going on either."
Right. Anyway, anytime a shooting is a pretty big story. So I said, let me go cover that, and then I'll watch the tape of what y'all did. So anyway, I went over there, not knowing what I was walking into. And when I got there, it was both Martinsville and city police on the scene. And then I kind of got over. I saw the police tape. I got over there by the edge of the police tape, and they said, "Hey, Charles, if you could get over here with the police tape, that'd be a good place for you to be." So that's where I went.
Okay.
All right, and then through my 40 minutes of being there, all these folks came up, and some were very friendly, and then some were like, "Get out of here! You don't deserve. You don't need to be here. This is too personal," and even got some threats and stuff. And then a lady comes walking across the parking lot and just jerks the camera out of my hands and throws it on the ground.
The camera or the phone?
The phone. I'm sorry, that's the phone. We always look at it as a camera, but
right.
she yanked it out of my hand, and I picked it up and just kept reporting. And so it was kind of like it was. I always felt like it was kind of like a game during the night to see if you just destroy my camera. And I think you understand the importance of having cameras in these situations. Obviously, they can be evidence. And I was sitting in my place, where they told me to stand. Even my worst critics said, "Hey, Charles, you did what they asked you to do."
Right.
So, as the night progressed, I got information that they called off the life care, and I'm like, "Oh boy, this means it's probably a fatality." But as a reporter, you want to confirm that. So you got to sometimes the reporter that stays the longest will get the most information.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a hard time backing up the ambulance because there's so many people crowded around it. That was kind of interesting. And then they had to totally ask people to back, and they were going to rope off pretty much a good portion of the parking lot. And then another little girl came to me lodging for my camera, and then there was another guy who said, "I'm going to get that camera," and he did. He went on the ground, and then that's when the policeman picked the camera up and just handed it off to a girl that he thought it was. But he didn't do the proper police work and said, "Hey, can you identify this phone?" And that's how the big story came out in the paper Sunday. Now, are you saying that I should just keep putting up with this?
In light of what you just said, let me ask this first.
All right.
Did they break the camera?
I don't really know because I don't have the camera. The first time it didn't. The first time, no.
Evidence? Is that part of evidence now?
No, we really don't know where it is. The police think it may be in the trash can, but I don't think they looked.
Okay. So one thing I would say, number one, you don't want to let off to a point to where people can just think they can do this to you anytime.
Right.
So I get that. I understand that.
And I've been doing this since 1990, and it's getting more volatile as we go out on these scenes.
Well, to be honest with you, Charles, and I don't know if I've said this to you personally, and I don't know if you believe in God, but I think you've been blessed in this community for a long time that nothing real has really happened to you, physically wise.
Right. Well, I mean, let me ask you, do you think I asked for this? Asked for people to go home?
I don't think you ask for it. I don't think you pick up on social intelligence. And that's a whole new concept. I don't think you realize, it's almost like sometimes if you go to certain places and people don't know that personal space, certain people, they don't want you in your space.
Right.
And that's what, 2 to 3 feet, unless you're invited to come in that personal space. And so certain people, that's similar to that.
I know, but a lot of this, they come to my space.
True, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that lady marched across that parking lot to jerk the camera in my hand. I mean, she walked into my space.
And, so to your safety, to the point of your safety, no, do you want to just set a precedent that anybody can do anything to you anytime they want? No, I get that, and you don't want to set that. But I do think if you were to go to court, you give a simple, I'm not going to say a simple smack on the hand, but making sure nobody gets any kind of felony charges, but making sure the judge puts the fear of God into people to let them know this is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And if this ever happens again, then yes, you will get the full penalty of the court. But I do think, imagine this. Imagine if I was a police officer, a child carries a gun. At the end of the night, he pulls the gun on me. It's not like I really want to shoot a child, but at the end, your training takes over. You end up killing the child. You feel horrible as a human being that you ended somebody's life. You go to a funeral. The mother slaps you in the face because she's angry. Am I going to hold that mother accountable because of her feelings and say, hey, you just hit a police officer? No, I'm going to let it go because I understand. I already feel bad enough that probably ended that child's life. At the same time, understanding your perspective, you do want to set some boundaries to because you teach people how they treat you. So I get that. But at the same time, taking into account, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you lost your mother a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
So you understand what it feels like to lose a loved one.
Yep.
So when my grief and trauma training, you can't tell people how to mourn and grieve. Everybody mourns and grieves in different ways. And so when you're in the height of a situation and you feel like people are invading in your personal, family trauma,
right?
You don't want anybody in that space who's not considered family or considered to be trusted. Right. And so when you have a camera, which is showing the whole world what your family's dealing with, that's some serious frustration.
Right. But one of the things that you won't find me doing is zooming in really close to families and so forth. I try, and in this situation, I didn't know who was family and who wasn't. I just knew there was a lot of people around the ambulance kind of blocking it in, and that became kind of a story. So, I mean, there's nothing personal. I don't. A lot of times, and even the police don't know who's who. Especially in the beginning. And it's just, I felt attacked almost. When somebody marches across the parking lot, and I didn't know who they were, wasn't even focusing on them, and they just whacked the camera out of my hand. And I just think that is something I can't tolerate.
And I totally understand that, and I don't want to negate your feelings, especially as a human being. You are definitely entitled to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Right, and as a journalist, I do think we do have a right to be there, and I think it's important that we are there. The fact that we had a camera there showed, for 2 or 3 days, we didn't know where the camera was, and then we were watching on our show, and one of our IT people slowed the video down, and you could see the policeman holding the camera.
Was there, from what I was told, there was a section where other media was, and you was not in that section?
No, but I was in the section they told me to go to.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
how would you feel? Let's flip the script. Anytime something like this happens, I always say flip the script. Mm-hmm. How would you feel? A loved one just, and I'm assuming the person got shot, right?
Yeah.
The person is on the brink of their life.
And keep in mind, in this whole 40 minutes I'm there, I don't know the whole story. I know 4 shots were fired. I don't know. Could it be 4 people? We don't know. We don't know.
To be honest with you, Charles, and I'm sure you've been trained in this. I mean, I was trained as a lifeguard. Before you go in and try to save somebody's life, you have to check the scene for your own personal safety.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's something I would tell you, which I'm sure you already know this. You need to check your own personal safety.
Well, I think the yellow tape's a good divider. I know I don't want to contaminate the scene. I get that.
Well,
and then they said this
yellow piece of tape can't save you from a bullet.
Sure.
So,
I got you. I get that.
It's definitely up to your decision. The reason why I texted you the other night is just to say, hey, man, like, people are going through traumatic experiences. I don't think this family would do this again to you. But at the same time, I think it's scary enough. And quite frankly, if I'm in that situation, I probably wouldn't care about a charge because I'm so mad and hyped up about the situation. So I don't know if I'd take your camera and throw it away, but I would probably definitely stand right there in front of you so you can't videotape.
Well, I've been doing it for 30 years, and it's like, I've had I had guns pulled on me and all kind of stuff. But ever since the El Nortino night, where
it was the language that you said, Charles. I mean, you called family members who were crying, worried about their loved ones inside. You called them a mob. That was family members, and you called them a mob. I saw the story the next day on Saturday, and I was like, this can't be in Martinsville. It shocked me to know that there was in Martinsville.
They were almost wanting to get in a fight with the police that night. And the police, if anything, stopped that thing in El Nortino. I mean, if they were not taking accurate information, they would just, and that kind of reminds me of a mob when people are just screaming things at people that they don't know for sure.
I'm outside. I know I ran out of there. I have a loved one inside. I don't know about their personal safety. I'm going to probably be teetering the line of that yellow line, too, trying to figure out, like, hey, what's going on? Somebody tell me something. So I would probably be in that same mindset, like, somebody tell me something. I'm emotional. You got to think. Even though you were there to video it, you wasn't inside when that happened. You got shooting going on inside. You run out. You finally get to safety. Now comes the period of, is my loved one okay?
Yeah.
I just want to find out, are they okay? So your emotions are running everywhere. You have to stand behind this police tape, which you want to respect it, but at the same time, you're talking about somebody's life. It seems like you've got the situation under control, but now I want to find out, is my loved one. Somebody tell me something. And if you don't tell me something, eventually I'm going to be like, I'm going to find out my own way.
All right, and that's when you can't, that's when we get to the point that you got to, watch your behavior.
Yeah, you do.
We're still
again, let's go back to the trauma and grieving and mourning. You can't really tell people how to mourn and grieve, and they don't know if their loved one is dead. All they know is, I heard a whole bunch of shooting. I luckily got out. The adrenaline is going. So all that, your emotions are running high. Nobody's telling you anything. You're standing out with another group of people who are crying and screaming, and nobody's saying what's going on. So, I mean,
all right.
What do you do?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it seems like the chaos is increasing. Is that fair?
I don't know if I would say that chaos is increasing. I don't like to hear, we're in city council meeting, and then all of a sudden you hear that somebody's shooting. And just this week alone, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of last week, I was in Danville with Danville Police, working with kids that's been in the juvenile justice system to tell them that very thing, called Boys to Men program, and they graduated Friday, teaching them etiquette, teaching them how to talk to police officers how to talk to them. So it's not like I don't understand, like, there is a growing issue about violence. That's apparent.
Let me pick up on another. You said social. You said maybe I didn't have the best social skills for the young people. What was that? Can you explain that to me?
Hold on, say it again.
All right. During the beginning of the show, you said you questioned if my social
No, emotional intelligence.
Social, is that new? Social, emotional intelligence?
It's just emotional intelligence. It's being able to pick up on social cues that people are in traumatic experiences and to be able to say, what is the best way? I have a job to do.
Okay.
Totally understand that. But at the same time, how do I do it in a respectful manner? I think you guys have, I think I've been researching, you guys have some kind of code of ethics in journalism, right? You have some form of code of ethics. Am I wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Sending that?
Yeah, we want to get accurate. We want to get it, fairly and do it. But the big thing is to keep getting it accurate. Try to get it as accurately as we can. That's the golden rule of journalism is just to get the facts right. But here, I go on a scene. I keep the camera live on Facebook because people want the information as soon as they can get it, and they can see what I'm seeing, and also I'm recording it as a record, to prove what I did and what they did.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the thing I would say, and again, it's your job. You do what you do. But,
Chad, I do listen to you. I mean, I every day I'm trying to pick up new information. Aren't you kind of,
Right. So my only thing would be, I would be thinking as a journalist, if this is live, how many family members haven't even heard about this? And the first they hear is somebody calls and says, hey, did you hear such and such got shot? And then they go on your show live, and for the first time they're hearing their loved one, their son, their daughter, their mother, their sister has just been shot. And then all of a sudden you see somebody, you see a loved one, and the loved one is saying, get the camera, move back, move back. If I'm watching this, I'm going to be mad because I'm like, that's my mom telling this guy, that's my dad, that's my brother telling this guy to get back.
Rather than do that, I think they ought to try to get out of the camera view. Because because there was that apartment situation. If they might have been smarter to get behind different view, because I was limited on where I could shoot anyway. And I don't want to shoot emotional movie.
You got to realize the police are trying to preserve the scene of the crime.
Right. But
they don't want a whole lot of footsteps. They don't want a whole lot of stuff in the middle of their crime scene, so they can figure out what happened and get a correct picture of what happened.
I got you. But a lot of these folks came marching up to the camera.
And what were they saying?
Well, the one woman that came and walked to the camera, she just. No. I can't remember word for word, but her mission was to slap my camera out of my hand.
And you know what you was dealing with emotionally, and that's why I say picking up on social cues. You were dealing with somebody who's in trauma. It's been a traumatic experience.
So it might be tough.
Prime example. Have you ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs? That base, like a triangle. That baseline is food, safety, security.
Yeah.
If you don't give that to people, if people don't feel that low end of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that safety, food, security, they are willing to act in a certain way to do certain things. If you won't give me this space to do this, then I'm going to create this space to feel this way. And so you're not dealing with somebody who's in their cognitive space where they're dealing with rationing, reasoning. You're dealing with somebody who's operating strictly out of emotion. And so if you don't pick up on those social cues, then you'll be in the middle of a situation to where you're like, what? I'm just doing my job. Like, why are you guys getting mad at me? And you're not realizing they're in a traumatic experience, and so they could care less about rules now because you're not operating, they're not operating in that rational space. And so you're dealing with somebody who's highly emotional.
Right.
And so picking up on that could actually save your life.
Yeah.
Picking up on those social cues could actually save your life.
Right, but I've been doing it 30 years. The first time I've had it swiped out of my hand twice. First time. I mean, I've had people try to get the camera, but I've been to hold on to it.
Ambulance still here on scene.
You know, and one night, the people, you know, were grabbing after that phone, and I was basically just trying to do a who, what, where, and when of the event. That was my objective. That's my objective of covering every story. Is why, you know, when did this happen? Why did it happen? Who's involved? That kind of thing. I mean, just the simple parts of the story. Usually, in the first night of a shooting, we don't know who the victim is. Usually, that has to wait till a day to a press release.
So one thing that I would do, me personally, Chad Martin would do.
Right.
I'm there to cover a story.
Tape over the car.
Family says, "Could you please step back?" I'm going to step back out of respect for them.
Right, but I can't cut the feed because it's a live event, and
I didn't say you had to stop. I just said I would step back and give them their space.
Sure.
Because when somebody's highly emotional and they're trying to still use words as opposed to their body to show you, like, I'm asking you nicely, step back.
Right. But I think
I would perceive that to say, hey, they're giving me a warning, step back.
Well, sure. But I was limited in even the space I could stay in that night. It had to be in that corner, and I was,
get folks to
obeying
move back
everything
now.
they asked me to do.
Just don't let us shooting. We believe it's
I
fatality
think
at this point.
it's a learning lesson for both parties, whether it be family, whether it be your space.
Right, and see, that's kind of why I had to press charges,
slowly
Chad, is because
get into the ambulance.
I can't allow this. Now, it's going to take an extra day for me to go to court and all this stuff, I'm sure. But I feel like, to preserve a little of what we do, that I have to do this. And I have to do it for everybody else that takes pictures in this town. That we need, at least to be able to need to cover the story, because it's important for those cameras to be there. I really believe it. I think the public needed to see how kind of wild it got that night. I mean, one guy came to the whole crowd and said, "I'm gonna burn this town down." I know everybody's got freedom of speech, but when somebody says, "I'm gonna burn the town down," I think that's a little much.
I think that person is operating out of their frustrations. That person that doesn't fully mean what they say. You've heard there's an African proverb. You've heard it. You've heard the African proverb, "It takes a village to raise a child."
I think Hillary Clinton.
She tried to appropriate that, but that's an African proverb. But there's a second part to that statement. It says, if you don't show a child love, it will burn the village down to feel its warmth. And so if you're not showing people care and concern, again, going back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're not giving people that space, that safety, security, food, then they're willing to do whatever it takes to feel that, even if they're talking about burning. Even though if you're saying this gentleman said that, he probably did not mean it. He's operating out of frustration, anger, and he's saying whatever is on his mind because he's mad and he's frustrated.
Right.
Did he mean it? Probably not.
All right. Let me share with you what people are saying on social media real quick. Nichelle, I can't pronounce her last name. She says, if this had been a white person and a white family, you'd be acting different. And I'm just saying. And then another person says they could have stepped back into their apartments. And then one more says, "What's Chad's new job?" But we won't get into that. But anyway, I mean, this is just people commenting, during our discussion here.
You kind of moved away from the mic, so I couldn't hear you. What you said the statements were.
One of them said, if this had been a white person and a white family, it would have been, you'd be acting different.
We have at least 10
let's say
law enforcement officers here outside the apartment.
We have James Harrison says, I agree, they could have stepped back into the apartment.
And we have people gathered up in the
get away
middle
from
of
the
the parking
cameras.
lot.
I mean, that's what the audience is saying.
And a lot of the attention's come off of me, and they
do you have any response to that? I just want to know
in
if you just want to
the middle
respond
of
to
the
that.
parking lot.
Let me ask you a question.
All
right.
Was a body outside? Was a body covered? Was a body outside?
The body, they kept that in the apartment. It was in the apartment somewhere.
So that was in the apartment?
Yeah.
So nobody was shot and they were outside, like on the ground?
If they were, I wasn't aware of it.
Okay. Well, again, everybody can say how they would operate in that space and time when you're frustrated, when you're mad. Everybody can say what's the right, what's the wrong thing to do.
Right.
The only reason why I text you was to say, let's put some bones and flesh on what people were dealing with. Let's put some humanity on it.
Right.
You are covering people, and that's why I'm kind of the opinion. Yeah, if you want to go to court and scare them and smack them on the hand, I think that would be the right thing to do, and they probably won't ever do it again. But to put some the human factor on it, you're not dealing with people at their best moment.
Right.
So you can't tell anybody how they would feel. Imagine this. Let's take it out of the context of what happened the other night. Let's make it more personal. And I won't even put it on you. I'll put it on me.
All right.
Let's say my mother and my dad get killed at the house.
Some of the police officers going to remove their cars so they can.
You show up at my house. Do you know what I'm going to tell you? Charles, I know you have a job to do.
But we saw the folks coming out of the ambulance, and they were.
Right, and then if
I will probably say it 2 times.
Walking out slow.
If I'm in that right headspace to do that. If you don't listen to that, then you're going to get a very different Chad. You're going to get somebody who's mad, who's frustrated that my parents just got killed, and you're going to get a very nasty side of me, not because that's who I am, but because I'm dealing with something I didn't even have the time to grieve and mourn. I'm still processing what just happened. Now I have this camera in my face, so I'm going to be like, hey, I understand you got a job to do, but you better step back.
Right, but there's 2 ways to look at that. You could say, okay, that camera might be preserving some evidence that might be able to get us to the bottom of this.
And at that time period, I won't be in that headspace to be able to think that rationally. I will be in the headspace, police, come do your job. I want to find out who did this. But I won't be in the headspace of, hey, maybe this camera is going to capture some evidence. I'm going to be in the headspace of get out of personal business. I want to find out who did this to my family because I want justice. Now, you come in and start videotaping, depending upon how close you are to my parents' house, I'm going to get real mad and be like, hey, Charles, I know you got a job to do. I'm going to ask you nicely. Step back.
All right, Mary Martin says, how do we, Mary Martin, I know you know Mary. She's saying, how are we supposed to know who the family is? And say it's no way to know who's running up into your face and threatening.
I think one of the things that, again, going with social-emotional intelligence, at that point, I'm not worried about who the family is right now. Unless they have a family spokesperson that's willing to come and talk to me, I'm worried about these people are saying get back. I'm going to get back. I'm going to step back. Charles, is a story worth your life?
I mean, obviously, if I know I'm going to get killed, no, it's not. But I mean, journalists, ran into cover 9/11. I mean, it's our job. Our job is to run to the scene.
Is the story worth your life?
I hear you.
I mean, if you feel like the story is worth your life, then you're going to keep doing what you're doing. All I'm saying is pick up on people's social cues and say, if they're telling me to step back, maybe I probably need to step back. Because I don't think they went at any... Did they go at any other the media that was there?
The other media left.
But while they were there, did anybody go with other media while they were there?
Oh, yeah. Louis got the same thing I got. Maybe not as harsh, but he did.
What? I mean, maybe the people felt like, hey, they were in a respectful place covering the story. Again, you're covering people at their worst moment.
They asked Louis to leave too.
Huh?
They were asking Louis to leave, and he did.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, Louis has reason within himself. I'm covering this little bit, and if they're saying leave, the story isn't worth my life. I'll get a report from either the Hendrick County or I'll get a statement from the police.
Yeah.
But is this story really worth my life? Will the paper, will the news, will the police eventually tell me what happened? Yeah, they will, because that's what they do. They will give you the statement.
Right. All right. We have a lot of things to have to think about here, but I appreciate you talking to me and being candid. That's one thing I like about you, Chad. You're candid.
I am, and Charles, I'm not telling you like you're evil for what you do. I'm just saying, just pick up on some social cues. You're getting people at their worst moment because of a traumatic experience that happened. You know, I understand you want to keep your safety and security. I totally get that. Totally understand that. I think the community will respect you a whole lot more if you drop those charges. Understandably, you want to make sure and send a message, don't put your hands on me or my equipment. That's totally understandable. But at the same time, I think people will respect you 1,000 times more if you drop those charges. I think they really will.
But
one thing about Martinsville,
what's up?
and Henry County, we are a very loving and giving community. You piss us off, we act totally different. But we are a very loving and giving community. That's best seen by when disaster happens, how we come together as a community. You know, one of the things, unfortunately, because of the job you have, you're there to cover a story. And again, people at their worst moment. And so your job, per se, does not speak to respectable, I wouldn't say principles, but doesn't speak respect to somebody that's dealing with this horrific moment. And so the last thing I want is a camera in my face while I'm dealing with this horrific moment. And that's just putting flesh, that's just putting humanity on what people are dealing with.
Right. Well, Chad, thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
And thank you.
All right, appreciate it. All right, getting some reaction to what Chad had to say tonight. Go ahead.
Yes, when they have a school shooting, and all the poor innocent kids in there, all the camera people there are filming it, and nobody is acting that way.
So many people.
They're not, none of them often acting that way. They're just there wanting to know where their kids is. They're not worrying about what else is going on around them. I don't know what Chad's problem is.
Right.
You're just doing your job, reporting it, just like any other news reporter's doing. So he's got a problem and an attitude about it.
Okay. All right. I'm glad he expressed his concern and, you know, the social emotion. I think kind of some terminology I hadn't heard of, but it's interesting for sure. 656-2255 is the number. Give us a ring. We're coming to you live. I'm going to take a break in about 5 minutes, but let me get some quick reaction from folks that have been listening. I know we got a lot of folks on Facebook tonight chiming in. What you say? 276-656-2255 is the number. This happened Tuesday night, and got the camera taken out of my hand twice, and then the second time it went skidding across the paving, and then the investigator picked the camera up, and then we did a show, and people then could see that investigator right there picking the camera up. Just one of the many reasons you want a camera on a scene, because the cameras just don't lie, and it's recorded in Facebook timelines, and it's no way it can be altered. That's one thing I like about this Facebook stuff. It's there, and you just can't argue. I can't go in there and edit it. As far as I know, I probably might be able to do it, but I haven't. You can go to last Tuesday night and see it the way it happened. I think it's like 40-some minutes. Anyway, probably need to take a commercial break. We'll do that, and we'll be back for some future more thoughts. But I want to thank Chad for being on our show tonight. You got to like the fact that he's candid.